Hey friends, Dr. Seema. I made a hat. This is Dr. Seema. I wanted to share it, so I'm wearing it. I'm gonna go through the cultivation approach handout. A lot of the stuff ties together. This is a little longer one. And again, all of the handouts are accessible on the website. But yeah, I know, I went through all of this stuff. I get downloads and I just write and I just do the thing. I realize that it might not always feel as concise and accessible to people. And I want to clarify in whatever ways I can. So that's why I'm putting this stuff together in video, and I'll make it accessible so y'all can reach out if you have questions about it. And yeah, it'll be in the world a little more. But yes, this is this that one? Wait a minute. Oh, the cultivation approach. The cultivation approach. I put this one together initially around the holidays some time ago, some years ago. I knew a lot of my people were going through stuff, and I just wanted to kind of have some things in one place for everybody to have access to. So the cultivation approach has just some, well, it has the practice, the orientation to the practice, and just a couple other reminders and things in it. So you can find this on the website. I'm just going to walk through it. I'll read some of it, but I'll also just kind of insert my thoughts and any clarification I might have. So the cultivation approach is a guide you can refer to as you commit to your healing journey. You will notice that it's iterative. It continuously refers back to itself. This is simply another tool to practice with in order to help you remember. Remember that you are in process. You are in process. You are in flow. This resource should act as a reminder that you got this. You'll be all right. So you can choose an area to practice with and click on the links to get started. If you access the links online, you access the tool online, there's some different links and things that I thought were helpful. So yeah, my orientation to this idea of cultivation, the cultivation approach, I like to say you are the seed becoming the change, right? And we have to be really mindful of the environment that we are planted in. We need to make sure the conditions are right for us to grow and for us to do what it is we're here to do. And sometimes we don't feel like we have that. We don't feel like we're in the best headspace. So I was thinking about what are some key grounding elements. And in the handout, you'll also see some of the tools. I call them the social work embodied tools. All of my work, as you know, I'm very much a social worker, and I refer to social work embodied as I do because it's really, in my mind, how do we embody all of these noble intentions and these values that we espouse as a profession? How do we actually show up? How does that operationalize in our daily practice? Because it isn't enough to just say you believe certain things or you're about certain things. Like, you got to be really intentional. Especially when we're working with other people. There's so many things that we as individuals struggle with personally. And if we don't have some self-awareness around that, well, what do we do when we come together with other people? Sometimes we think other people are the problem, and we're actually the problem. And there's a good deal of social workers who don't have, you know, some of the self-awareness. They could really help them do good work by people. They're struggling in their own right. And they're people, and they deserve all the support and resourcing they can get, right? How do we show up and be the best support to others if we're not getting the support we need? So committing to your own healing journey is just critical. If you're working with a therapist, great, you know, and it's a good fit, wonderful. If you're not working with a therapist and you're open to it, see if you can find one that's a good fit. If you can't do that, utilize IVT. That's really why I came up with it. It was for people that I knew weren't willing to talk to a professional. They weren't willing to talk out loud about what was going on with them for whatever reason. And again, healing is not inaccessible to anybody. So practice with IVT and the life hacks if, you know, you're not quite there. The cultivation approach is also a tool you can use. And so you'll notice the key grounding elements. We'll talk about those, and then I'll talk about the areas for practice cultivation. And then the social work and body tools are just plugged in here when you look at the handout, because those are tools that can kind of help with your process, I imagine. Give it a shot. You got to try it. You got to do the thing if it's going to help you. So the first key grounding element, finding your posture. How are you embodied? How are you carrying yourself? You know, one thing I noticed for the longest when I would go, I'd be on my way to work, taking the bus to Covenant House and getting off and getting mentally in a headspace where I knew I needed to be so that I could show up and do right by people. I dedicated so much of my free time, almost all of my free time. My personal life was just really dedicated to meditation. I would go to meditation retreats, silent retreats, you know, be in Sangha, be with really intentional spiritual friends, community members. Because I don't honestly know how I could have done that work otherwise. It was critical for me. It was critical for me. So I didn't have any illusions about what it was to find my posture. And I think you need to think about that, you know, what that means for you. So finding your posture. Beyond just sitting up straight, you know, holding our head up, our shoulders back, you know, holding ourselves in a way that embodies dignity, right? Knowing that we are worthy of respect, deserving of respect. How do we carry our bodies? How do we carry ourselves when we bring that to the front of mind? That's what finding your posture is about. I'd be walking to work, and sometimes I would just, no, I wasn't really feeling like going in there, you know. And I would just be really intentional about, you know, holding my head up, putting my shoulders back, you know, remembering who I am, what I'm capable of. And it made all the difference. It was energizing. So finding your posture. The areas for practice cultivation. Practice being in your body without self-medicating or numbing. It's a big part of finding your posture. Practice getting in touch with your body through dancing, power posing, walking meditation, and other somatic attunement exercises. So there's links on the electronic version, as I said. And tons of stuff that you can access on YouTube, tons of videos that you can access on all of these things. Practice going inward with curiosity, sitting with the discomfort. Because I am very much rooted in Buddhist philosophy, my practice, my work, there's some links that I compiled I can kind of give you an intro to that. So there's the intro to autonomics. Autonomics is something that I think is really key. If you're familiar with polyvagal theory, autonomics is essentially expanding beyond polyvagal theory and kind of course correcting a little bit. It gives you some good visuals to work with and to conceptualize how we be in our bodies, you know. Get real familiar with the language around the autonomic nervous system and what it is we're feeling individually in a relationship. So some intro to autonomics on the links. Internal family systems. Great therapeutic modality that you can do with yourself. Some good self-therapy books on internal family systems that you can access. Good stuff online. EMDR resourcing, some core grounding, EMDR resourcing. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. There's some key exercises that and grounding techniques that EMDR relies on. Those are accessible to you online and in books. And if you have questions about any of this stuff, you can reach out and I'll get it to you all. All things you can practice on your own. CBT, DBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Some good free handouts online. Therapistaid.com is a great resource. You can go download all kinds of handouts and worksheets. And CBT, you know, helping us think a little differently so that we can feel differently. Very relevant. DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. Helping us really with the distress tolerance. So that's really kind of what this is all about, with finding your posture. How do we be in these bodies? How do we be with ourselves in our bodies without trying to escape? Without our escapist strategies that we all employ from time to time. Self-compassion. Anyone who knows me knows you can never have too much self-compassion. It's key. When you're not gentle and compassionate with yourself, when your self-talk is leading you down a path of, you know, berating yourself, you're not going to be able to hold your body in ways that are inspired and energized. You know, when we get that self-talk, we close in on ourselves. We come into this, you know, we go into the shame spiral. You have to be compassionate with yourself all the time. Your self-talk, channeling your self-talk is probably one of the most important things you're ever going to do. And it directly ties into, you know, how you carry yourself. And practice being with the embodied sense of impermanence. This is key. Key to, you know, the teachings, the Buddhist teachings. Notice feelings and sensations arise and subside. We're just practicing being with the stuff. Everything is impermanent. At the core of it, suffering comes about because we try to cling to things that are impermanent. Something's on its way out and we're desperately grasping, trying to keep it around. It don't work, and then we suffer. So that's a big part of the teachings. If we're not clinging, if we're not struggling with attachment, what we might be doing is trying to push away things that are inevitable. There's no avoiding them. This is what it is. The time has come. There's an inevitability. And here we are trying to play God. We're trying to deny it. We're trying to say, no, this isn't the time. This isn't what it's going to be. We don't have that. That's not up to us. And then we suffer. That's the suffering. That's where it comes from. So yeah, there's a link to some intro to some Buddhist teachings, some things I compiled, the Four Noble Truths, the Triple Gem. That's the teachings. The teachings and the meditation practice. your own personal practice of going inward, and your spiritual friends, having community that you can turn to. You're all working together. You know, you're all alone together in it. That's really what it's about. And something on the Eightfold Path. So good stuff. Just good resources. Don't let, you know, this idea that, you know, there are Buddhist teachings, you know, turn you off. It's all practice. It's all stuff you can practice with. You can be whatever your faith tradition, doesn't matter. You can still practice with this stuff. It doesn't negate. It's not about negating anybody's faith traditions. And if you're about the cessation of suffering, you don't want to suffer, which is really what all mental health is. How do we be with ourselves and not suffer so much? The Buddhist teachings are the way to go, in my estimation, from what I've seen. So that was all. Finding your posture. I'll try to speed up a little bit because I know I've got a few more. Few more to the cultivation approach. The next one, finding your gifts. Finding your gifts. A big part of finding your gifts. I'll go into the practices for cultivation. It's the unlearning. I talk a little about that in another video. It's unlearning the fear, the judgment, and the cynicism. Unlearning the small b belonging. And remembering to keep an open mind, to keep an open heart. And leaning into the will to change. Right? As Bell Hooks shared with us. It's a great book. You should check it out. Leaning on the will to change. Remembering belonging. Unapologetically being. And canceling out, you know, the noise that has you second guessing whether or not you belong. Just do it. Just belong. Easier to say than it is to do, I know. But we practice. That's why we practice. Practice doing the things you enjoy. Exploring interests, hobbies, things that make you feel balanced and whole. Those are the things that you're going to do. That's how you find your gifts. You're going to practice letting go of habits and pastimes that do not feel gratifying. A lot of things that we've done for a long time, and we come to a place where you just realize they're not for us anymore. They're not doing it anymore. It's not, We gotta let it go. Surrender. Release it. And practice things that make you feel part of something larger than yourself. Classes, community service, activism. Lots of opportunities to get involved in movement work. And who doesn't? Yeah, we got movements happening for a reason. There was some movement needs to happen. So get involved in that. And, build community in these spaces. Beautiful, wonderful people doing so much important work and organizing. And you can get to be a part of it. You get to hang out with them. They're cool. They're the coolest. You know? So that's finding your gifts. Those are the areas for cultivation, right? And this is really about finding that purpose, our heart work, returning to our heart work, understanding what our heart work is. That emphasis on the art, right? Because you're here to be creative. You're a creative being. Finding your spirit. Number 3, finding your spirit. I think having a spiritual container in this life is really key. And I think these concepts of I, so I, intentionality and service of impact, this idea of centering self, source energy, living from, centering self, and I, so I. Lean into these as a spiritual container. If you don't have a formal spiritual practice or faith tradition that feels really grounding and supportive of you, or maybe you're realizing what you were raised on isn't really for you, it's not cutting it, lean into this stuff. You know, all of this is aligned. The universal spiritual laws very much is foundational to my work. So, yeah, if you don't have a spiritual container, find one. Maybe this can help you a little bit. And as I said, you know, IBT, the life hacks, right? Practicing the I is practicing the life hacks, the fear play, and the people over profit, which we talk about in another video and go into depth in the handouts. So finding your spirit and practice developing an affinity for your uniqueness and your voice via intuitive scaffolding, right? Intuitive scaffolding is just really intentionality around listening to yourself. That's what the IBT stuff's all about. When I first realized that maybe this was a direction to go, it was clear to me, a lot of times people are just processing things aloud with others. That they really don't need to say out loud to anybody else. What they need to do is listen to themselves. You ever hung out with somebody and they're just going all the way there, and you just think, are you hearing yourself right now? That's what a lot of times is what's happening. We're out there just running our mouths and we're not listening to a word that we have to say. So we want to get out of practice with that. We want to be intentional about listening to ourselves, right? And the thing is, once you practice with something like IBT, it acts as what I refer to as intuitive scaffolding. It helps you trust yourself more. You're not just kind of out there trying to figure things out. You can feel more grounded. You can trust that inner voice. You can trust the way God speaks to you, through you, or source, or whatever you want to call it, right? The universe. Okay, so that's part of finding your spirit. It's practicing developing an affinity for your uniqueness and your own voice. Listening to yourself. We spend so much time listening to everybody else. Listen to you. Practice trusting yourself as much as you do external feedback or validation. Most of our struggles are really tied to the ways that we are boggled down with externalities rather than intentionally going inward to listen to ourselves and to practice trusting ourselves. We're very much, externally focused, looking for external validation a good deal of the time. You actually don't need it when you trust yourself. Okay? Practice trusting your own intuition as source speaking to you through you. Imagine your emotions are messengers from source, guiding you to respond and to act. This is a little visualization. You know? I'm not saying go out and act on every emotion, but I think if you take time to really stop and be with yourself and get really curious about what you're feeling and why, I think it would be safe to say that maybe there are messengers. Maybe there is something there. And you feel real angry. You feel real hurt or indignant. Maybe there is something there. There's a messenger there. Some guidance in how to move and to respond. And why not treat it as that? A lot of the time people come into therapy and they're struggling with their mental health because they're desperately trying to keep themselves from feeling things. That's not what they're for. Feelings are there for a reason. We're here to feel. We're feeling beings. Okay, so don't fight it. They're messengers. And then the final one for finding your spirit. Practice radical self-compassion and patience with your process. Refrain from self-criticism when you stray or make mistakes. There's no point in going too hard on yourself. right? Lovingly accept your human nature because you are empowered to make changes and do better. You are. I know this one, you know, because of sort of the current disdain that we have for people that we perceive as sort of narcissistic, right? People who have narcissistic traits. People who have narcissistic traits actually have a good deal to teach us. I think we all need to learn how to be a little more narcissistic. We all need to make sure that we are being really, really thoughtful about how we move and what we commit ourselves to. Loving ourselves is critical. It's critical. Not signing up, having good, real, solid boundaries, not consenting to things that don't feel right for us is critical. Okay. So, as I said, reorient to self, centering self. Think of self as source energy that you're living from, okay? Don't get overly bogged down with this idea that there's something wrong with loving yourself. If the source energy that you are living from is calling you to move in a particular way, trust it. And protect yourself and your energy. Right? That's also part of finding your spirit. It's not exposing yourself constantly to things that aren't for you, that deplete you. Okay? For finding your smile. We're going to practice seeking and seizing opportunities to smile and laugh. And this is grounded in your gifts. So go back, when you have the handout, go back and look at the practices for finding your gifts. Right? It's just grounded in your gifts. Right? All the things that we enjoy and want to spend time doing. We're going to practice unapologetics. We're going to show up radically honest in our self-expression. We're going to do things that make us a little uncomfortable because we don't know how they're going to be received. But we want to do them. They feel right. Feels good, right? I'm going to do it anyway. I squeal sometimes when you know you're signing up for something, you don't know what's coming. That's unapologetics. You're going to do it. You're not going to apologize for it. You're going to show up and do it anyway. So, what are some ways that you've been called to express yourself that you don't let yourself? I know sometimes a lot of guys, they want to do more effeminate stuff. They want to put on nail polish and do it. Just do it. Whatever you feel called to do in terms of your self-expression that, you haven't felt like you could do, give it a shot. Okay? This is part of finding your smile. Because even if you're just in your room with yourself doing it, you get to feel good, and then maybe you get to a place where, you recognize there's community out there for you, where you get to share in that, right? You get to be radically honest in your self-expression, and you can find your people when you practice unapologetics, right? And then practice carrying yourself in a manner that demands respect. Intentionality of movement. So this is grounded in your posture. So you'll notice that for the areas of cultivation and finding your smile, the first one's grounded in your gifts. So you're going to go back to finding your gifts. Practice with that stuff. The second one, practicing unapologetics, that's grounded in your spirit. That's operating from self. That's operating from source energy. That's centering self. Source energy you're living from. So that's grounded in your spirit. You're going to go back to finding your spirit. You're going to practice with that stuff. Practice carrying yourself in a manner that demands respect. That's grounded in your posture. How are you carrying yourself? How are you moving in your body? Would you respect you if you saw you walking down the street? Would you, feel inclined to kind of give them their space? Honor them? Get out the way if they've got somewhere to be? Use your imagination with this. And practice it. Practice carrying yourself in a manner that demands respect. Don't let anybody, call you a narcissist because you do these things. I'm telling y'all, don't do it to yourselves. So this is critical step we have to do. We have to learn to love ourselves and not apologize for it. Okay. 5, finding self-acceptance. Okay. And as you'll see here, this is all about centering self. That's self-acceptance, centering self, that source energy we're living from. Grounded in finding your gifts. You're going to go back to finding your gifts. Grounded in finding your smile. Go back and practice all the things we talked about in terms of finding your smile. Grounded in finding your posture, right? You see how this all just ties together. It's all stuff we just, get a good handle on it and remember it and just keep going back to it and practicing with it. Self-acceptance. Just trusting you are worthy. You belong. You belong. You're here. Unless you belong. Just as you are. And not at the expense of anybody else, because they belong too, just as they are. And we're practicing with this. So finally, not finally. Oh, we got a couple more. Finding your people. Finding your people. Okay. So we're going to practice envisioning who and what we want for our lives, the types of people, kinds of energy, surroundings, experiences, and we're going to get excited about the possibilities. All right? This is also grounded in your gifts. If you're practicing your gifts, you're leaning into your gifts, you're doing the things that you love and enjoy, guess what? You're going to be surrounded by other people that align with you. All right? We're going to practice restraint and delayed gratification. If people do not meet you where you need them to be, i.e. boundaries, we're going to practice having some solid boundaries. And remember, there is no consent without dissent. You need to be able to say no to certain things. You can't say yes to everything. That's what the boundaries are for. That's grounded in your spirit, finding your spirit. All right? And you're going to stop gaslighting yourself like there's something wrong with you. You're going to practice engaging those with comparable truths and values and chosen life paths, right? These are your people. Trying desperately to be liked by people who don't even like themselves. Don't do it. Trust that you belong, just as you are, to the universal collective, right? Your people are there. They're out there. But you gotta love yourself. And you gotta be really mindful about what you're consenting to. Finding your people, you can also really lean into the practices, the life's whys, right? The 4 C's of play. Curiosity, creativity, compassion, and connection. How does that translate when it comes to finding your people? All right, think about that. The last area for cultivation, finding self-love. Okay, and these are the acronyms, as you remember, right? Self, source energy living from, that's self. And love, living out vision emphatically. That's what you're doing. That source energy you're living from is here to live out the vision emphatically, unapologetically. This is the self-love. This is grounded in finding your spirit. This is grounded in finding your smile and finding your people. You got to find your people, and don't limit yourself. And I think when you find self-acceptance, that's kind of foundational to really finding your people. So practice with this stuff. Just keep going back to it. If you struggle with any of the areas, 7 areas of cultivation, refer back to the areas they are grounded in, right? I talked a little bit about that. When you look at the handout, you'll see. For example, if you're struggling with self-acceptance, work more intentionally with finding your gifts, finding your smile, and finding your posture. things to play with. This is all just fun. This is good times. This is all play. Okay. As you continue through the handout, MindBodyService is a simple formula for prioritizing our mental health and overall well-being. Think of 3 ways you can focus on each element of MindBodyService. MindBodyService is one word. Okay. To establish a daily practice around. Because these 3 elements are interconnected, you will find that focusing on caring for the body helps relax your mind and vice versa. It is one way to bring internal balance when you become overwhelmed by your thoughts. Okay. So you can ask yourself, as it relates to mind, how can I best care for my mind at this time? So maybe meditation, listen to music, right? Talk to someone, practice some IBT, whatever it is, right? Your body, how can I best care for my body at this time? Do I need to eat? Do I need to rest, stretch, get some fresh air, sunlight? Yeah, just going through the list, right? And service, how can I be of service in my community? This is really important. Everybody needs to feel like they are of service in some regard. Help someone in need. Dedicate time to a community project that gives you a sense of purpose. Maybe it's your heart work. Reach out and allow someone to help you. This is also being of service. You got to keep in mind, if everybody needs to be of service to somebody, well, then we need to let people help us. Because maybe that's how they can be of service. And that's helpful for them, you know? So just letting people help you is helpful to others. I came across, somebody, I don't remember who had said it a long time ago at a CE event, that you can't be stressed and anxious in a relaxed body. And that's why a lot of people self-medicate. That's the reality of it. But we're leaning against, we're not leaning into self-medicating, right? That's part of finding your posture. How do we show up in real intentional ways? We got to practice being in our body without self-medicating and without numbing. But that's part of it. Just sort of making that connection, right? The mind-body connection is just very real. So find ways to help, help you get into a relaxed body, whatever that can be. Getting a massage. I really like getting massages. You do that. Moving your body, making sure you're moving your body, really important stuff. Okay. Getting out there and just walking is huge. It's so much, it helps people's mental health so much, just getting out and committing to walking, getting fresh air. Hugely important. And just being in nature, being around trees and greenery, right? Okay, so MindBodyService, just keep that in mind. Just one word, right? And some additional reminders are there at the end of the handout. I talk about scheduling a heart visit with me. That's something that you could do conceivably at some point when I'm taking clients again. That's not the case right now. Another link that's on here is a safety plan, a little safety plan template. The most important thing you can do is prioritize whatever it is you need in the moment to be able to keep doing the life thing. Okay? Everything else will wait. Your safety is the most important. Call or text 988 for emergency resource and support with regards to your mental health. I've got links to mental health resourcing in California and New Orleans. And yeah, we need it. Everybody, as you know, we're so interconnected. When I'm not well, I can't be of much service to anybody else. And that goes for you too. You're not well, who you think you're going to be helping? Right? This is that we got to put our life vest on before we try and save others that are drowning. This is it. Having real intentional practice, okay? So I know that was a lot, and have fun with that and play with it, because that's all it is. It's just play. Have fun with that. All right. Love y'all. Big hugs. Virtual hugs.